we have the perfect guest, former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren. It's great to have you, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be back with you, Chris, as always. Hi.
You got any 411 for me on whether or not they approved the deal yet? And do you believe that Israel will?
I don't think they've formally approved it yet. The cabinet meeting is over, a 6-hour cabinet meeting. My guess is yes, they will approve it, and the debate will ensue. You know, on one hand, Chris, this is a great accomplishment. 50 young people, mostly some old people, some infirm people, reunited with their families. You can't begin to express the joy that those families feel, and the joy that we feel for them. But keep in mind, there's probably another 180 hostages still in the hands of Hamas. And those families are going to be feeling something very different. And there are, what can I say? There are dangers. 4 or 5 days of ceasefire. Hamas will use those days to rearm, to equip, to set more booby traps down. You know, if and when the fighting resumes, our troops are going to have to meet those booby traps, and some of them will step on them, as they have. Most of our losses have been to these booby traps and mines and IEDs. So there's that danger. There's also the danger that Hamas is not really an honest broker, as you know. They violate every ceasefire, and they could release maybe less than 50. They could get to the 5th day of the ceasefire, only release 40, and say, "Listen, we need another 5 days. We can't find them all." You know, Hamas is a terrorist group. They're going to be moving that football every opportunity they can.
So they don't have to return all 50 right away before the pause. Also, the principle involved. Look, as an uninitiated, as an outsider, I would go with the feeling of something's better than nothing. But what about the more sophisticated understanding of not getting all the hostages and the message this sends about the value of taking hostages and how you wind up getting what you want? How do you walk that line?
It's very difficult. Let's start from the beginning or the end. Doesn't matter. You're going to come back to the same word. The word is ceasefire. Hamas wants a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire, not a 5-day ceasefire. Why? Ceasefire means Hamas gets away with mass murder. It means Hamas wins. Then it can begin to rebuild its military force and start all over again. Its own leaders said, we're going to do this a second time, a third time, a fourth time. So they're not hiding this. And ceasefire means Israel loses. We've got 250,000 people who are homeless, have been driven away from the borders. They had to evacuate. I don't know. Would you go back to those borders right now with your family, your kids, if Hamas is reorganizing on the other side and preparing the next attack? Very, very difficult. So it needs a ceasefire. So here's the danger for Israel. You get a 5-day ceasefire, and then Hamas says, well, we'll release a few more in return for another 5 days. And before you know it, you got yourself an open-ended ceasefire. And Hamas, here's the difficult thing, Chris. Hamas will never release all the hostages because it knows once it does, Israel will destroy all the tunnels. And the only thing keeping Israel from destroying the tunnels, from flooding them with seawater, is the fact that there are hostages down there. So these hostages are the get out of Gaza free card for these guys. And you're dealing with, I said, you're dealing with not just honest brokers, you're dealing with terrorists. And it's like negotiating with ISIS or negotiating with Al Qaeda. It is very difficult. This is I'm an historian by training. I don't know a case like this in all of history where a government had to make this kind of decision.
Yeah, I don't either. That's what I was spending my day doing today. You know, it's really a short supply of analogs on this, even at looking in the region. And I have to tell you, I'm going bad on my own analog. You know, I was relying a lot on 9/11 and our response structure after it and what our disposition would have been to calls to take it easy. We went into the wrong country. And, went for broke. And our allies in the region were telling us to go slow. We didn't listen to anybody. But I realize now it's just not a good analog. The United States is not Israel. We don't face those threats. And people don't tell us what to do the way Israel cedes to pressure. And I went back and researched, 1973, everybody, wants to jump into this situation with fresh eyes like nothing ever happened before in the region. And you could, however you feel about what you see is the sum total. 1973, Golda Meir, the whole Israeli superstructure had gotten exactly where they wanted to be to push into Cairo and to have all the leverage of saying against the big bad guy at that time, which was Egypt, now You're going to do peace our way. And the United States kept them from doing it. And here we are again, where Israel is saying, we want to do what everybody else does in this situation, which is kick the bleep out of the people that came in and committed terror on our land. And they're not allowed to, and they're being told they've done too much. I've never heard of it before.
It is, just to put this in American terms, and I understand and agree with everything you're saying. American terms, because America is 330 million people, and we're only 10 million people, it'd be the equivalent of 52,000 Americans killed in one day. That's almost as many Americans were lost in the entire Vietnam War one day.
And not just
you
killed.
Have thousands and thousands of American hostages.
Not just killed either, okay?
Killed.
Like what happened on 9/11 was bad enough.
Killed.
But not just killed, raped and then killed, some killed and then raped, massacred, babies, things that I don't know what we would do. I don't even like to think about what America would have done to that entire region of the world if that happened.
Oh, sure. I remember what America did to the Japanese when those pictures came out of American soldiers, prisoners of war being decapitated by the Americans. People went crazy. And I understand. This is what we're facing. But here's the big difference. Al-Qaeda, even though they took down the Twin Towers, was a horrible, terrible tragedy, still they were far away. Gaza's next. Mm-hmm. I live in South Tel Aviv. I live in Jaffa. It's a 40-minute drive from Gaza.
Right.
And it's literally next door. And so we have no choice. This is a war of absolutely no choice. It's a war. It's an existential war. It's a war for our survival. And that's why this issue of a ceasefire is so difficult for the government. So meanwhile, the government's taking a huge risk by doing the 5-day ceasefire and, hoping that the war can resume after that. The world will let us resume after that. There's going to be tremendous pressure on us right now. And everything hinges on this. And we're delighted these young people, old people are going to be reunited. Their families want to get all the hostages out. Why doesn't everybody say, Chris, why doesn't the world, instead of, criticizing Israel all the time, why doesn't the world say to Hamas, hey, surrender unconditionally, surrender, give up these hostages, and, we'll let you get on a boat and go wherever you want to go. How's that one?
Because they think Israel's the bad guy.
I think most Israelis sign off on that.
I'm about to bring Cornel West on, and he's going to say, because Israel is the aggressor, and Israel has been the aggressor, and they're making life miserable, and they're the ones who are supposed to be protecting the Palestinians and in the West Bank, and they're not. They're doing the opposite. And this was only a matter of time because, whoever said it first, that terrorism is the act of desperation of the powerless, and that's how we got here. And if Israel stops doing what it's doing, things will get better. That's why in America it's been catching on that way. I'm not judging it, and to the extent I do judge it, I don't agree with it. But I think that's what we're seeing, no?
Well, I've been involved in the peace process for 30 years. I was an advisor to Rabin back in the 1993. I've been an advisor just about in every peace plan. I took part in the last negotiations with the Palestinians. And, that's an immensely complicated issue. It has nothing to do with Hamas in Gaza. Hamas killed all the Palestinians who were in favor of peace. Right? Not just the Jews. People forget that. Hamas is opposed to any peace because it wants to kill Israelis.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's no peace with the Palestinians in the West Bank has nothing to do with Gaza. And the only reason there is a blockade of Gaza, and it's only a blockade of arms, it's not food, it's not medicine, okay? And before this war, we had the ability to move 1,200 trucks a day into Gaza, not 300 trucks. And I was in charge of that. I was actually in charge of Gaza for the government. Was because this was a terrorist state. We were at war with them. They were trying to destroy us. They fired tens of thousands of rockets at us. We were supposed to have open borders. When the PA was in Gaza, we used to go shopping in Gaza. It was completely open. And tens of thousands of Gaza worked in Israel. This is an enemy country. It is completely different. It's apples and oranges.
I get it. We got to continue the conversation. We got to see if Israel moves forward with this, if it holds, if it's seen as acceptable, all the politics. We'll watch it play out together, and I'll be calling on you, and soon. I am thankful for you, Michael Oren. I wish you the best for Thanksgiving on very, very hard times.
Peaceful. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. God bless. All right. Let's bring in